again. It's great to see so many faces out and online as well. Today's discussion on career pathways and opportunities in geoscience. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered here on the unceded territory of the Wabanaki Confederacy, and we recognize and express gratitude for the Indigenous peoples who have stewarded this land for generations. As we discuss the geoscience profession today, it's important to reflect on our responsibilities, land, its resources, and the communities that depend on it. March is also National Engineering and Geoscience Month, if you didn't know, and it's a time to celebrate the contributions of these professions to society. At APEGNB, we've been proudly regulating the practice of geoscience in New Brunswick since 1999, and we're excited to bring this panel today. I'd like to thank the Quartermain Earth Science Centre and the UNB Faculty of Science for helping to organize tonight's panel. Moderating today's session is Carolyn, Lordon, the Director of Registration at APEGNB. She and her team work closely with future professional geoscientists and engineers, as well as current professionals, guiding them through the licensure process and helping to shape the next generation of the professions. So please join me in welcoming Carolyn. Good evening, everyone. Microphone works. Yay. And again, welcome to tonight's panel discussion on career pathways and opportunities in geoscience. As Lauren said, I'm the Director of Registration at the Association of Professional Engineers and Scientists of Brunswick. For the rest of the night, I will say APEGNB. I'm thrilled to be here and to moderate this important conversation for students and before we begin, I want to mention that today's session is being recorded. We have an audience both online and in person. So a warm welcome to those tuning in online. We're glad to have you with us. For those who may not be familiar with APEGNB, we are the regulatory body for engineers and geoscientists in New Brunswick. Our role is to ensure that individuals practicing in these fields meet high standards of experience, and ethics to protect the public and the environment. Part of that mission includes supporting the next generation of geoscientists by fostering professional growth, mentorship, and career development. Geoscience is a crucial role in some of the world's biggest challenges and opportunities, from resource management and climate adaptation to environmental sustainability and community safety. Canada is rich in natural resources, yet geoscience is often overlooked in public discussions. Today, we'll only explore different career pathways in geoscience, but also discuss how geoscientists contribute to responsible resource development, energy transition, and global sustainability efforts. We'll also talk about the evolving skills needed in the profession, the importance of diverse voices in shaping the future of geoscience, and how professional organizations, educators, and employers can better support students and early career professionals. To our panelists, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. And to our audience, we encourage you to engage in this discussion, whether you're a student exploring career options, a professional geoscientist, or simply curious about the impact of geoscience in our world. We're going to start with some targeted questions for the panelists, and then we'll follow up with an opportunity to ask questions and engage in further discussion. So we're going to start with introductions. I'd like to start by asking our panelists who are members of currently practicing as a professional geoscientist in the province. So the first question for our professional geoscientists is, can you share your journey to becoming a geoscientist? What inspired you to pursue this career? Start with Erin.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, my journey to become a scientist was mostly by accident, actually. When I was little, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I really like dinosaurs. but I didn't really like being outside all the time. I very quickly realized I was a fair weather field person, so I kind of rolled that profession out. When I was in high school, I did really well in maths and sciences and had some good guidance counselors who kind of suggested that engineering might be a good route. And then I lived in Moncton, looking down the road here at UNB, I wanted to do environmental engineering. And at the time, and I'm not sure if it's still the same, but at the time, the pathway to environmental engineering was through geology, through geological engineering. So it was geo-environmental engineering. So I really kind of fell into it, but have been practicing as a geoscientist, as a consultant for over 20 years. And it was by fluke, but I'm very, very happy, and I have a very rewarding career.
So, actually, in terms of the starting out with a odd view of interests, I guess, and I was kind of known for being a science teacher. I wasn't sure a bit. Shame. Nobody necessarily forced me down the path of geology, so I really had to wander my way to find it. Anyway, yeah, I just was broadly interested in subjects. I wasn't a top-notch student, but definitely had interest in things. So started out, I was interested. A lot of students are told it's in trouble, but narrative, so we need people to go and get careers in environment. So I had that environmental angle in mind. Dad did call it electrical engineering work. He manufactured micro hydro machines. So I was interested in renewable energy, and so I said, probably could attack that by going down engineering. So I started in electrical engineering. Then I met my wife and found out, just different priorities. And anyway, I ended up choosing geological engineering. And I'd say here at UNB, again, bounced around while I was going through that path, but eventually I settled on just doing I did a master's degree and with here at the Dr. Foster, I really liked it, and yeah, just kept on with it. So it wasn't a straight shot, and I didn't walk in knowing what rock versus a mineral. I really knew nothing when I took the plunge. So if I had kind of looked back at that trajectory, I thought, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So mine is a really wandering path. It goes around the world a bit, but I didn't know what geology was. It was not taught in public school during my time. Never heard of it. Heard geography, but not geology. I didn't get introduced to geology until second year civil engineering. I was doing civil engineering to become an architect. I had to kill a few years before I could apply to architectural school. Then I took a year off to go on a Canada World Youth Exchange, where we went to BC and a rural village in Indonesia. So I spent 3 months in a rural village in Indonesia when I was about 20. I came back obsessed with water, very much obsessed with water. So I continued to apply for architectural school, but you had to have a backup. So I started looking for a backup at UNB. And I liked the environment. If I was doing architecture, it would have been on the environmental side of architecture. But I liked the environment, liked water. I was kind of obsessed with it. And in my second year civil engineering, I found out on geology because it told me why things were there, why that hill was there, why the beach was there, why the beach was eroding, why earthquakes happen, and all that. I liked how it told how the earth was the way it was. Anyways, I got into architectural school, but did not end up going. I found this degree program offered through the Earth Sciences department now called Environmental Geochemistry. I liked environmental, I liked geology, and I said I'd deal with the chemistry when I had to. turns out I ended up spending a lot of time in chemistry for this. So that's how it is. I work in the environmental world, so environmental geochemistry, hydrogeochemistry, which couples, which ultimately has a lot to do with contaminant transport and in the environment, so fate transport in the environment. And I have been working very deeply in that field in a variety of ways for over 20 years.
Everyone's going to have a little bit of similar mine as well. I went through high school thinking I was going to be either a gym teacher, a hairdresser, or an engineer. All equally important things. And I would say that going back to science, math was really my daily wage. I had no one in my family at that point in time that had ever gone to university. I have nobody that I didn't know any engineers. I didn't know anything about what I want to do, but I was like, oh, everybody else seems to be going into engineering. Maybe I'll try this engineering thing. And I went to UNB for 2 years. And at UNB I was in class with 6 people. I was in class with maybe 10 people. So I got a lot of exposure to all the different types. And I started in civil as well. I was like, well, electrical didn't really interest me, mechanical, and civil. I was like, well, I think it was more for me, I could see it, right? I could see a bridge, I could see a road, I could understand it. And then similar names, you'll hear them as well. I came up to UNB Fredericton and took my first geology class with Dr. Broster. And Dr. Broster, fascinating, make rocks fascinating. Like, who can make rocks fascinating, right? That's just something. And I realized that, but it's true, right? Like, he made it not, and it made me go, and similar to Diane, is it like, oh, the bridge? Well, the bridge didn't really interest me anymore. It was what was underneath it. How did it make it stand up? How are we going to do that? How could I make something better? So all of that side of it really interested me, and really, I wanted to know more about it. And then again, I think you'll find a lot of this, the geology side of everything leads more towards the environment, leads more towards people, the human side of engineering. And I think it draws a lot of people to geological engineering and geological and geoscientists and geology, and because how do things were made, what people did. And so all of those things really relate with people who like people. That doesn't mean you want to deal with people all the time, right? So but it's true. And I think that's the best part about, from an engineering standpoint or geoscience standpoint, is that the best part about being an engineer is you can do almost anything. You can be an engineer and not talk to people all day long and be on your computer. You can be an engineer and go outside all the time and never have to worry about talking to people or talk to people all the time. You can communicate really well with people, and that's probably the hardest part of engineering, because the architects aren't always the best communicators, and I think that's one of our questions will come further down. So I started in the environmental field. I worked for a consulting company and worked my way into working at the refinery. So I work at the refinery at St. John, and which is not something that you would find a geological engineer. Most of them, engineers that work at the refinery are electrical, mechanical, chemical engineers. And I often find that becoming an engineer, geoscientist, a lot of it is problem solving. Teaches you to how to think, how to solution, and that's why people want you. The knowledge, if you graduate from an engineering or geoscience degree, people know you're smart. But what else do you bring to the table, right? You can problem solve, you can do all that. So I think throughout my career, I've been with Irving Oil now for 23 years, and don't say it. But when you look at all the doors that I've gone through and all the different variations and different jobs that I've gone through, I manage maintenance right now. And you wouldn't think that managing maintenance at the refinery had anything to do with a geology or geological engineering degree. And just today, I was outside on a job site, and didn't you know it, I actually used some of it. So I think no matter what, if you're someone who's looking at what you want to do, it always stays with you. So never forget that part of it as well.
Thank you. I'm now thinking I wish in the late 80s I had met some of you or your classmates to help me with my life choices. So now I want to turn to our 2 students, Joseph and Renata, and ask you, what drew you to geoscience, and what do you hope to achieve in your journey?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph DeLuca. I'll just introduce myself. I am a 4th-year student of Earth Sciences here at UNB Fredericton. I love and hate this question because I never really know how to answer it. I'm always glad to hear what other people have to say. And when I talk to professional geoscientists and they say, oh, well, this was my journey and it was lots of twists and turns. And I didn't know that I was going to do this when I started out. It always makes me feel better because I'm kind of on that same path. I really didn't have a direct path at all. But like a lot of people, a lot of students in geoscience, I collected rocks as a kid and I loved being outside. But until I entered university, I really had no interaction with geoscience as a field. And I didn't really know that it was a field that was available to study. When I entered university, I actually started in the sociology and English program. And then I kind of said, well, I kind of want to do something that's more scientific. And I was really good at biology in high school. And when I was in high school, there was no geoscience program either. In my time, I tried much more recently, but also not that much. Not that much. What I mean, what I mean to say is that even as and it really was, I think definitely older than you, but that even as quote unquote recent as that was, we still didn't have any programs. I think we only had programs. I think it was only recently that they added a program to grade 10 and grade 11 for Brunswick, not the case, to study geoscience. But when I was in high school, it was. You learned a little bit about the solar system and then, okay, let's move on to something else. So I was really good at biology and I thought when I came to university, I decided that I didn't want to do sociology and art. I said, okay, well, let me do biology. And that first term, that I was at UNB St. John, actually, I took my first class in biology and my first class in earth science because it was the only other science that fit in my schedule. And it was from that first class with Dr. Lucy Wilson at UNB St. John. Yeah, you're nodding. That I said, I don't want to do anything else. I have no interest in anything else. This is what I want to do. This is what I meant to do. And it's funny because in hindsight, geology was always where I was meant to be. I don't regret the path that I took where I was in these other programs because I learned a lot from it. And when you do other things, you really learn how to think from that perspective. And then, especially when it comes to starting in arts and then switching to science, you really do learn a lot about how to approach problems and how to approach talking to different people who don't have the same knowledge base as you do. So I really don't regret it. I loved everything that I've done in school, including before I went to geoscience. But in hindsight, this was where I was meant to be. And this feeling that I'm in the right place, even though I can't say what it is truly, at what moment did I get into geology, whether it was when I was collecting rocks as a kid or whether it was because of Dr. Wilson, the feeling that I'm in the right place only gets stronger with time and with every class that I take and every internship that I have. Perhaps if I knew about geology in high school or sooner than that, I would have known right away. But honestly, it doesn't matter to me. It really does. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me that I took sort of a meandering path. And on that note, I think they were also asking us for what we hope to achieve in our journey. And I do want to answer that because I know there's lots of students in attendance, and I want to say that. For me, geology is a science of perpetual learning. There's always new things that you can learn in geology if you are so inclined. I've been fortunate enough as part of my degree to go and travel to a lot of different places and study with a lot of diverse people and work on a bunch of diverse projects. Actually, in 2022, I spent 6 months in the Arctic Circle and I got to study with geoscientists who came from all over the world. Norway and Finland and Germany and the United States and other places. And we even got to do coring on a boat and Arctic marine coring on a boat, which was amazing. And also, just so many other things. I wanted to mention that, not to brag, but just to tell the students in the room that even if you're an undergrad, there's so many opportunities, so many things that you can do. Geology is just not, I know we're going to talk about this later, but geology is not just, one thing. I have to do resource extraction, I have to do hydrogeology or whatever might be the main subjects that you've heard about. There are so many different things that you can do. And I want to, my goal is basically just to be a perpetual learner. And I want to tell the other students in the audience that there is really no end to geoscience. It kind of captures so much. And if you have an interest in almost anything that's related to the natural world, you can be an earth scientist.
Hi everyone, I'm Rafa. I'm a third year geological engineering student here at UNB Fredericton as well. And I think my path is also kind of similar to everyone here. When I was a kid, I wanted to go into law school because I had an aunt that was a lawyer and I thought she was really cool. I was like, I want to be a lawyer someday. But then I went through high school and I was like, man, I suck at English and history. I can't write, I can't like do public speaking and everything. So I was like, okay, I'm better at math and sciences. And so I was already thinking about going into engineering in high school. But then my mom was like, are you sure you're passionate about like going to engineering and everything? Maybe you should go into nursing. I was like, that's too much pressure on me. Like people's lives are in my hands. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into engineering. But when I started applying for university in grade 11, I did not know what kind of engineering I wanted to go into. And when I was looking through the programs that the universities here in Canada were offering, I found geological engineering. And they were talking about how in this discipline, you're not just in an office, you're working outdoors, you get to travel, there's so many opportunities to be outside. And even when I was a kid, I could not stay put in one place. I wanted to go explore, go to new places, always find something interesting and new. And so I'm like, this might be a good career for me. And so I went into geological engineering, not really knowing what to expect. But as I go through my degree, it's been really fun and it's been a really interesting journey. And so I would say like the thing that drew me in the most was the opportunities that I had for traveling and being outside. And also, since I was skeptical about the program that I was going into, if you're in geological engineering, you can get your professional engineering license and professional geologist. So having that broad pathway and having more choices in your career was really interesting to me. And that was also one of the things that drew me into geoscience. And what do I hope to achieve in my journey? For me, in an ideal world, I would want to be traveling all around the world, seeing the different perspectives that people have all over the world and what they have going on in their own places, and hopefully putting in what I know and what I've learned throughout my career, and collaborating with people in terms of geoscience. That would be amazing for me. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So Rafa, I think that what we're going to do is, because we went this way and down, I think we're going to, since you're already on a roll, we're going to stick with you. The next question is for everyone. What advice would you give for early career professionals looking to become a professional geoscientist?
One advice that I would give for early career professionals would be to take the opportunities that are presented to you. Not all the opportunities you would see an opportunity and be like, that's a perfect role for me. But just putting yourself out there and talking to people, reaching out to other geoscientists, it would create more opportunities for you to learn and experience more. And people in the geoscience community, they're very supportive, very eager to help. That's what I found in my career so far. And yeah, especially a student here at UNB, look at your emails, go to events, and yeah, there's always something that will pique your interest. And don't be afraid to just go. You know, like I found myself being like, I don't want to go to this event because I don't have a friend with me and I'll be like alone. And also the geoscience events here in UNB, it's a small group, it's a small community. So not having someone that you know in like these events and these conferences, it's kind of daunting. But in second year, I went to a conference in Newfoundland and I barely knew the people I went with. But after that, I realized I can make friends, I can make connections and have great opportunities and experiences through these opportunities that are presented to us as students here. And so, yeah, just put yourself out there. There's always something for you, and there's always people that would want to help you.
Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah, if I can repeat exactly that, making opportunity, I wrote this down, making opportunities your own. That's really important because there are a lot of opportunities that are out there that are presented to you as a UNB geoscience, speaking from the geoscience perspective. if you look at, like you said, if you go into your, there's opportunities that are listed there. Your classmates will tell you, oh, you're eligible for these things, classmates in years that are further along than you. But there's also opportunities that are not immediately obvious. And you should really take the time to seek out those opportunities. Maybe it's an internship with an organization that you didn't think was actually open to internships, or a professor who you didn't think would take an undergrad for a summer research, opportunity over the summer. And you wouldn't have known because it's not on the job board or it's not presented to you. And it's something that you have to just bite the bullet and be brave and just go and ask, even if you need to seek advice maybe from a classmate or to seek support from a classmate. Go and seek out, first of all, yes, go and look at the opportunities that are readily available for you. And when you build up that confidence and try to do it as soon as you can, ask about opportunities that are maybe not so obvious. If you see that there is 10 internships that you could take that you could apply for, but now they're not quite interesting to you, you could make that opportunity your own. You could still go to them and say, can we add some part to this that would be more meaningful to me? Or you can try to maybe make your own opportunity by seeking out what are the professionals or the professors who are already working on this topic, and can I join them with what they're doing? So I want to say yes, opportunities, absolutely. But also as a student, especially as a student who's about to graduate, and now I'm kind of looking at what are the professional opportunities available to me, I would say be careful to mind your own progress in school and your own goals. If you want to join APEGNB or become a PG or a PN, you do have metrics to meet both in school and in your professional career. And you are really responsible for this. So as a student, take agency for what you're responsible for, because there's really no cookie cutter degrees and no one's really gonna hold your hand. But you can't be afraid to ask questions when you're confused about what goals you need to meet and what metrics you need to meet. And you need to also take the time to find good mentors. If there are professors that you really like, if there is a job opportunity you've taken, you have really enjoyed that job opportunity, you enjoyed working with your coworkers, try to stick with those people, try to stay in touch with them, try to build on the relationships that you developed, go to networking events and talk with other students. And like you said, don't be afraid just because you don't have a classmate to go with you. You can't worry about that. You just have to go. You have to do it yourself. And always try to work with, and I also wrote, work with diverse people as well. I think that's very important as well. I think it's easy as a geoscience student to say, I have to go and do only things with other geoscience students. But I think you would find if you went out there and you looked at different opportunities that were available to you, you fit in more places as a geoscientist or an engineer. You fit in a lot more places than you think that you do. So mind your opportunities, look for new opportunities, mind your own progress and your own goals in school and your internships. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And also be yourself. I wrote that too on my notes. Be yourself, because if you, and I have run into the situation so many times where I have tried to fit into someone else's mold and it doesn't work, because eventually you just get too tired of doing it and you realize that this bridge that you're on is collapsing beneath you, and you really just need to it's such a diverse field, and there's so many different kinds of people out there, and it takes all different kinds of people to make things work. So it's just about take the chance in university to discover who you are and then stay true to that.
Oh, that professional. Mine is going to be really simple, is communication. I think we rely a lot on our science and our smarts, and that it doesn't matter how smart you are if you can't communicate that. So learn early to step out of your comfort zone and to make sure that you can share your thoughts, speak your mind, but that communication skill is ridiculously important, not necessarily how smart you are. So.
Okay, we gotta think of something else. So communication is right to add on to that, though, and may or may not be happy to hear about it, but 60% of the job can be report writing and getting your thoughts on paper in a readable way with good English. It is a skill that you have to develop over time. And I remember that writing my honors thesis was like the worst thing in the world. Now I'm writing reports a week, one report a week or more of a technical nature. So yes, that communication skills has to go to writing. There's no way around it. And I know we have some AI coming already here. Be careful. It does some weird things. And then one other thing, again, this is something I remembered. There were students who were having lots of fun in university, which is what you're supposed to do, part of it. But a concept of saying, oh, well, you get a diploma if you have a C or an A, it doesn't matter. That's not true. You should aim to strive to get the best grades possible, not because for the sake of the grades themselves or privilege, but because it really does, in order to do that and get those grades, you really do have to learn your material very well and put the time and effort into it. And it does help for scholarships and it does help with employment. Opportunities tend to fall in your lap more easily. It doesn't mean you have to have perfect grades or anything like that, but don't dismiss the importance of good studying and learning the basics. They are your foundation for your house.
Yeah, you raised a good point about communication and writing, especially. I think something that I like the way you put it, to hone your writing skills, like you may as a student not have to send out emails. You're more taking it in, you're a sponge, right, for the first while anyway, and then eventually you're expected to be squeezed and start spitting it back out. But yeah, just writing, learning that skill, writing good emails, being concise, and that's quite important, I find. Because sometimes with emails, you only get one good shot, and you write a bad email. Yeah, it's pretty important. Anyway, I should also say, yeah, get involved if you're able to. In that, and I will give a plug for if you're a student starting out, like there's some good accessible conferences that don't necessarily have to spend a lot or go very far, like the Atlantic Geoscience Society holds a conference, usually in the Maritimes every year. But also, yeah, that's a great opportunity. And for me too, I met my wife and I had a kid pretty early on while I was in my second year. So I all but had to give up my social life. And I was not great at connecting with people. And anyway, one way in the beginning was, as many professors in this room who I took courses with will know, I'd ask questions after the lectures. And that was a good tactic for me because that meant I could just carry on with whatever we were talking about, but they would get to see me. I'd get to know a little more about what they're working on. That was a wise decision, I think, looking back. So it's about it for that. For me.
I would say that you should have a growth mindset, which is like thinking about things that you maybe think you can't do. You say, well, I can't do that yet. The critical thinking skills and the problem solving skills that you're learning in university through this degree will, serve you well in doing your job technically. But I think maybe a few of us have touched on already, like our roles that we have now are not strictly technical. A lot of us have people managing roles, or you might be an office manager, you might be an auditor, there's so many different doors that can open up that are outside of the technical skills that you're learning here at school. And so, I think just approaching things, and someone else touched on, taking opportunities when they present themselves, even if you think it's outside of your comfort zone or something that you're not going to be very good at, find a place to work where you're offered those opportunities and jump on them when you can.
I think it's fascinating. Not one person at this table started off thinking that this is this was going to be their path, but
Yeah.
you found your way to it. So I think it's great advice to say, take the opportunities and see where your path leads you. Okay, next question is for Tanya. You personally faced or witnessed challenges related to diversity, equity, or inclusion in your career? And if so, how did you navigate them?
So the answer is yes, and I think everybody at this table would say yes for different reasons. I am obviously older, and I would say that, I would say obviously, than half the table. Actually, older than all the table, I'll be honest. So, but I think when I first started my career, I, again, was in those classes with maybe 10 people, but I was the only woman. I was a lot of times from a gender perspective, there was a lot of differences, a lot of difficulties that I would have had that I may not have recognized myself, to be quite honest with you. I was really lucky that my earlier years, I played sports, and I also, everybody has to have that job that you work in customer service. So when you work in customer service, it teaches you so much, right? It teaches you adversity. It teaches you how to deal, how to communicate with people that may not like what you're giving them, or that you got the wrong order, or that you did something. So that customer service, I think, did so much more for me than I probably realized at the time, that I was able to combat adversity a little bit probably better than maybe some of my peers who didn't have that perspective. Did I have biases based on me for my gender? 100%. But how did I face them? A lot of times with not necessarily the combative, like I'm not trying to be defensive. I've just either let them be. It's actually, when you realize a bully is a bully, it actually has nothing to do with you. So I think once you learn that from an earlier age, it helps, right? That they're upset, they don't agree with what I'm saying. Either are they intimidated by, because I have a degree, what it is. So I did learn that a little bit earlier on. That did help, but does it hurt? 100%. Was it hard? Yes, for sure it was hard. So based on gender, yes. Did I also get it based on age? So age doesn't have a sex, right? I was a younger person when I started out my career in the consulting world. And in the consulting world on a geotechnical site, there's a lot of heavy industrial machinery, a lot that's not, and that's quite male dominated, and also older dominated. So then there's a different diversity quotient in there, the age side of it. And there's also going to the whole fact of who knows about geology, right? So you're dealing with the general public, anybody out and about that actually doesn't know what you're doing. So then that's a question. So now they're going to question you for, well, what do you mean you know what you're doing? I don't know. Well, we normally just do this. Or, back in the day, where does it go? Data just goes away. So all of those things play into that. So it's not just about the diversity, the gender, that I think all of those roles, every one of us could say that we face different challenges within that. And I think what comes down to it is how you deal with it and your inner strength and where you find it. And also having, for myself, I had great mentors. So we talked about that again today, is that you need mentors that are personal mentors that can help you when you're having a situation that may not be technical. When someone's being ignorant or someone is not being kind, that isn't always a technical conversation. Sometimes it is a personal conversation, and you need a mentor in that regard. And you also need a mentor in the regard of somebody who's going to help you with the technical side of it. So if you're getting, challenges with the technical side of it, so I think for me, how I combated that was surrounding myself with a good base. So going back to that base in your foundation, which is all the geoscience, right? So I think when you have that base and you have that full side of it, that's what's going to help you get past it. But I would say everyone faces it. It depends on how you face that challenge and what you allow to affect you as well. And that takes a long time. I would say that my current self and my past self deal with things a lot differently now, and I have a better way of dealing with it. But to think that everyone in the room isn't going to face some of that challenge at some point in time is, is a lovely fairy tale. And it would be nice if it didn't happen. But I also think that without adversity, you don't grow. So there is some value in some of that. And what do you learn from these challenges that you're going to have, whether it's inclusion in your career? You have to force yourself in some of those situations. And then sometimes it makes you go, maybe I don't want to be in it. And that's okay too. And going back to how we've kind of traversed through our careers, I think it's really important to recognize when enough is enough, and maybe a new path is what you need to do.
Well, I think Lauren would be really upset with me if I didn't build on what you just said. APEGNB, one of the things that we have, that Lauren has worked really hard on, is developing a mentorship program. So it's called the Connections Program. This is a good opportunity for us to plug all of you, not new grads, new people. What the Connections Program does is tries to connect early career professionals with more seasoned professionals to provide that mentorship. So it's not about the qualification for registration. It's about those conversations like you talked about. You know, hey, I need advice on some of this relationship stuff or some technical questions. So if you are not a new geoscientist and have not thought about the Connections Program, Lauren's your girl to talk to after. If you are a new or soon-to-be new geoscientist, then you may want to look into the Connections Program when you become registered.
So just on that too, for anybody that is new and looking for, do I really want to mentor or not? You do. But you should think of, you're not imposing on someone. When someone is their mentor, it is quite an honor for someone to be asked to be someone's mentor. And I think oftentimes our young professionals feel that they're imposing, or that what if they say no. The only time someone would actually say no is if they didn't think that they were going to give you the amount of time that you deserve. And that wouldn't actually have anything to do with you. It could be anybody who's asking you. So I think if you find someone that you resonate with or that you would like to know more about, that would be, you should really ask, because that person's going to feel very honored. And if they cannot, we'll 100% help you find someone else.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit about Canada's natural resources and global demand. Hitting the news a lot these days. So we're going to start with a question for Carolyn. Why is it important to have diverse voices in geoscience, particularly when addressing global challenges like climate change and resource management?
I mean, I guess I would say it's always important to have diverse voices around the table. The more sort of backgrounds, experiences, genders, age, as Tanya just talked about around the table that you have, then you get, like, you have diversity of people, but you also get diversity of thought, and that's how you come up with better ideas and better innovation and better solutions for your clients or whatever problems you're solving. I would say specifically as it relates to climate change and resource management, problems in those areas tend to disproportionately affect marginalized communities. So like if we think of the experience in North America, maybe that's Indigenous communities, poor communities. And so it's even more important to have those voices included. You never want to be in the position of doing something, about somebody without them. You don't want to make a decision that affects a group of people or the land that they're living on, their perspective and their knowledge. So I would say that's the key, is that it's like those specific types of things tend to disproportionately affect those types of communities. So just making sure you have all the voices around the table.
Okay, now I have another open to everybody, but I'm not going to necessarily point out one or another. So our next question is, Canada is rich in natural resources, yet geoscience is sometimes overlooked in public discussions. Why do you think that is, and how can we raise awareness of its importance? So I said I wasn't going to do it, but maybe I'm going to send us back down, starting with Stephen.
Me?
Yeah. You can say pass, or
No, sorry.
it's a full for me, free for all.
So why is it overlooked? Well, probably a lot of it has to do with the lack of understanding or engagement with geoscience by the public. And what do you even mean by that? You say the word geoscience, and half the time you get blank stares. People I've spoken with, I have to, which is no problem. I love to explain it, what I'm doing, but they're just fundamental concepts, right? And that's a stumbling block for sure. So that leaves us geoscientists with the imperative that we need to do better at communicating it. So and getting people on the same page, and that you can't come at people from way up here at the academic level. You have to bring it right to where people are, and so that's really important in communicating, I guess. And then just yeah, everyone you meet, like people ask me, say I'm a geologist with the New Brunswick survey, and first thing here is, oh, what do you think about that resource project, or what's your opinion? And although I have to give my professional opinion, and say I also have personal ones, but just to get people to appreciate the subjects are sometimes nuanced. That's another thing. Like they might read it one way in the news and not really have all the facts in front of them, seeing one side of things necessarily. So that I think those are the main ones I would point at for that.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely, do it. I think if we want to talk about how can we raise awareness and the importance of it, would be to show people how it affects them, right? Like what's in it for me is how you're going to make people want to know a little bit more about it. Everyone wants to know how it's going to affect me. People can automatically see how something may affect them with other types of engineering, with other things that are going around the world, but not everybody really understands what this dam or this water supply or what's going to happen hydrogeologically, right? It doesn't resonate because they don't know what it means to them. So I think that's what we as a profession need to help make it more personal, and that's going to draw the attention and make everybody a little bit more into it.
And also, I think education plays a big role to it as well. As many of the people on the table has brought up, it's not taught in high school. Even when I was in high school, we didn't have a course that was readily available for us to just learn about geoscience. And so what I know about geoscience up until I was in high school was from an intro lesson in general sciences from middle school. And then after that, I didn't really think about it. And I didn't really think there was opportunities in geosciences. And so I think just opening that up to middle schoolers, high schoolers as well. And I volunteered for the Quartermain Earth Science Centre, and I've seen firsthand the amount of effort that they put into outreach programs and to introducing geoscience to middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I think that's a really great way to raise awareness for it as well, since kids don't really know what geoscience is, but at that time they're interested in a lot of things. And to just bring that, I guess, option and idea to them, it's like, this is something that's happening right now, and this is something that you should be aware of. It's a really great opportunity.
I think you're really onto something with this Earth's first responders thing. I think that's really catchy. I need to just tell more and more people about that panel, this panel talk.
May I add some thoughts to that? Because I've thought about this question a lot. I think it kind of goes back, I wrote down glass tower. I do think it kind of goes back to the concept of the glass tower, for academics, and also this kind of blue collar versus white collar. I mean, we're all here because we care about geoscience, and a lot of us are going to school science and learn about these scientific principles that allow us to overcome what I think is like a geoscience language barrier. Geoscience is like its own language, and if you're not taking that specialized education, then you are not able to. Then the science needs to be brought to a level that you can engage with it. So I think what the public is getting is oftentimes, instead of not understanding the scientific principles, and this is not their fault, what they're getting is a really zoomed in picture of geoscience, which is based off of resource extraction, the economy, and the environment. Now, oftentimes they're also getting very misconstrued, especially when it comes to resource extraction, and not a very accurate picture. And it's really not their fault. They don't really have any other choice. They don't know what these foundational principles are. And why should they really care about something like uphill sodium diffusion? They don't care. What most people seem to care about, especially here in New Brunswick, is like, is there radon in my basement? If you open a mine here and I'm a carpenter, can I go work at that mine? Or is that mine going to mean that in the future, this lake that I used to fish at every year, I'm not going to be able to take my kids to fish at? These are the things that they care about in terms of where they interface with geoscience. And I think another problem is also the news cycle. It's really hard to keep the interest of the public in projects in geoscience that are multi-year or discoveries that are multi-year. Like, for example, all of the news on deep geological repositories for nuclear waste. These are very, very long-term projects that require a lot of intense effort from a lot of different branches of geoscience. And we're basically we're kind of at the mercy of the news cycle where people are maybe, they hear about it for 5 minutes in a pop science news article, usually because something has gone wrong. And then they get maybe really interested in this topic. And then a new Mission Impossible movie comes out and they're no longer interested in the topic because they have something else to think about. So I think keeping awareness is really, a lot of people at the table have already said this, awareness is really the responsibility of the members of the geoscience community. And I know we're going to talk about this, so I won't go into it, but I think the two main branches of that awareness is one, support new people who want to enter the field and capturing the passion. Youth are really, like I'm talking about high school level youth, are really some of the most passionate people that you can get in terms of their interest in sciences. And if you capture them at that level, then we can maintain the conversation with geoscience in the public eye, and also doing events like this, and keeping people engaged in geoscience and keeping the field in public consciousness is a way that we could beat those news cycles and also beat the hyperfixation that people get on, or those little like zoomed in views where all they're hearing about is, something has gone wrong at Point Pro, or, we're only focused on resource extraction. So yes, that's what I would say to that is investing in young people who want to join the field and also doing more engagement to meet the news cycles. Leave it at that.
Well, I'm going to follow Aaron's lead and say that we are going to perpetuate the term Earth's first responders. And with that in mind, I'm gonna throw next question to Diana. So if we're describing geoscientists as Earth's first responders, how does your work contribute to community safety and environmental sustainability?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to be totally honest, and I have never heard the term Earth's first responder associated with geoscience. In fact, as previously mentioned, it's a little bit more the other way, in that the geologists, prospectors, right, to extract earth, and then we have a legacy of mine environmental issues to deal with, which has led to a lot of mistrust in the public. Obviously, things have changed over years, but mining legacies that go back hundreds of years or even 50 years are difficult to resolve. So yeah, if I think of first responders, I think it's definitely an interesting way. I work in the environmental side. Currently, my job is in the environmental side of mining and power and transmission in terms of dams, hydroelectric dams. And so if they expose rock that is acid generating, you have environmental consequences. So we try to prevent that nowadays or mitigate it. So first responders, no, my contaminant transport, we're actually more like sometimes surgeons and doctors. So I think of first responders as the people putting out the fires, the forest fires, and people cleaning up oil spills. Those aren't necessarily, although certainly in the oil spill world, that can have the environmental consultants involved in it. But if I look at it in terms of my background in contaminated sites, sometimes the scalpel is actually an excavator, but it is trying to first we all recognize prevention is way more cost effective than the cure, but we have both, and we do have long legacies because these things go on. So a problem that is not related to our generation or even 2 or 3 generations ago is still something we have to work with and deal with. So we're definitely, my field, the environmental side of it is contaminated sites, cleaning up remediation from a variety, not just mining, but organic contaminants, industrial contaminants, and that's knowing where they go. And once contamination makes it below ground, it is very difficult to track. We have excellent technology, but we still, in geophysics and stuff, we have an imperfect view of the world beneath us. And so trying to understand what is happening under there. I liken it to weather prediction. Now, weather changes much faster than things than what's going on down below the ground surface. But they also have sophisticated supercomputers producing all these weather models, climate models all the time, continuously, and they have all that. We don't have that budget in the world to do. So it's it can be very, very challenging to resolve some of these long-standing issues that we come. But at the same time, I am the environmental side of things, but I have a cell phone, I have a car. A windmill might need, 7 different mines to extract all the material required to build the windmill. Solar panels require resources from the earth. And so it's a balancing act.
So,
Might have gone a bit
no, not at all, not at all.
I think that's like the key part of that, like the balancing act, I think is so important when you think about the geoscience world.
So I'm looking at the time, and we are going to do 2 more questions. One for Stephen. From your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions about Canada's natural resources and geoscience professions' role? Sorry, let me do that again. From your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions about Canada's natural resources and the geoscience profession's role in managing them?
Well, Diana just hit on a couple good ones there. First off, for geoscience, start with the last part, the geoscience's role in managing them. With other sciences and with other, like meteorology, you would think that everything has been figured out and it's very sophisticated and so advanced. But I can give you a story of so many cases where it's like, wow, in 100 years, we haven't learned a lot, or in some cases we have, but really, like, it's all over the map, right? So there's a big misconception on what people think about the Earth. They think that people just have it all figured out, and so we're still learning as a science. It's a new science in a way, and things are always developing. And so the other one she said is, making that connection between the material world and things that come from the ground, or if you can recycle, but you can't necessarily recycle everything, right? And it's so complicated in a way to when you get into those subjects that people lose interest. So as Tanya was saying, you gotta tell people why it matters, and so to them, right? So clear up those misconceptions is a really important thing we should be doing as geologists. In case, and I know this just came kind of vague when I'm saying, like, there are situations where we don't know. Well, for example, like I hear all the time, like we're using up the Earth's finite resources. I hear that one a lot, that resources are finite. Yes, technically they are finite, even though Earth is a closed system. But the thing is that finite is just a vague. How finite is really an important question. Anyway, I get bugged with that. And how do we know necessarily how much of a given resource we have? And so there's all sorts of conversations you could have there where it's like, we have a great understanding of this, not that. Also, our role in managing things. So, yeah, the term geologist could mean a whole lot of different things. So you have to clarify that. And it's managed in many different ways. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone that loves rocks or loves grueling field work or what have you. So many ways to do it. Yeah, people, just something that I see often conflated. People will conflate mineral exploration with mining. Two quite different subjects, in fact. And there can be people involved in mineral exploration who really never talk to others in mining unless it gets to that stage. But it's a spectrum, and so that's a big misconception, right? People think necessarily that there's minerals in the ground, right? That automatically there's going to be a mine, or what that means. There's so many misconceptions that fly around. So I could really air it all out on this question, because I have a lot of grievances, but I won't do that because that wouldn't be in great taste. But yeah.
Well, we will.
And also limited.
Oh, sorry.
That too.
Sorry. Did you have one more?
I'll cut it off there. But this is a great one to clear up misconceptions. That's super informative, and yeah, you can see all the labels there. Yeah, and I'll touch on that later. But I mean, a lot of these careers didn't exist 50 years ago, right? Which is amazing. And yeah, you take time to look at what people are doing in that. That's a great way to resolve some misconceptions that you might have about the earth.
We're gonna do one last question, and we said that we were gonna ask it just of the students, but if any of the professionals want to weigh in, the last question that we're gonna ask is, how can professional associations, employers, and educators better support students and young persons in pursuing careers in geoscience? So we'll start with the two students, and then open it up to anybody else who wants to weigh in.
For me personally, there are a lot of opportunities for students right now to do internships in the geoscience field, but I think the way that we can make that better is to actually reach the students for those internships, because a lot of the times, it's based on my experience for this summer, actually, I found it quite hard to look for geoscience internships compared to engineering internships. I found that the engineering department here, they are more, they kind of drill it into you. You gotta get your work co-op in the summer, and so they lay it out to everyone. Compared to the geoscience field here, it's more of like, there are opportunities out there, but sometimes when you want to find like a specific area to work on, it's kind of hard to find those opportunities unless you go out there and ask people who are in those fields already. And sometimes that's not readily available to you, and you'll have to build that connection and that networking. And so I think the best way to do this would be like to invest more in the students early on, and also, like, I would say, for when it comes to co-op work terms, normally it would be like during the summer, 4 months. For someone who's still going to university, 4 months of a co-op work term would just be training and building out the basics of the work term and what you're doing at your co-op. And so having
That's a new book. Oh my God.
okay. Having a longer work term would allow the student to actually get comfortable in the role that they've been given and build that confidence to say, like, I do like what I'm doing, or I don't like what I'm doing, and to have that informative decision of, yes, I believe in myself that I can do this. And I think that's the biggest thing for us right now, building that confidence. Since we do learn the theory in university, but then when you go out there and do your job, it's like, it's really scary to be like, oh, I know this in my head, but I don't know how to do it, actually, like, produce it. Like, so.
We have a ghost in the room, people on the camera.
It's a battle going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also, I for 8 months, really like getting your toes wet. Even a year, certainly I jumped into it. So you take first year before you become useful. And people know you and start getting you into more interesting work. So I wouldn't try to expect, I'd be careful to expect to love your work right off in the first or within 4 months, or make a decision, based a major decision within the first 4 months or something like that. You might need a year or two, and of course you can. There's also paths you can take to in your direction. So it's always something to be aware of, especially if you feel stuck. At some point, if it feels stuck, it's time to move on. But yeah, the co-ops, get your toes wet, get your name out there a little bit, and may get you a nice invite back. So to get you started, if you want it, or if you want to do other things, but yeah, they're not for long term.
So I think we're going to move on to the next phase. So we've covered a lot of great topics with insights about your winding career, your career pathways in geoscience, to the role the professions play in sustainability, resource management, and global challenge. Before we wrap up, we're going to have a moment to have questions from the audience, both in person and online. So this is your chance to ask our panelists any questions you may have, whether it's about their career journeys, advice for students and early career professionals. If you're joining us online and you have a question, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We have Ann Timmerman's online. She's going to shoot questions to me. We'll do our best to get to as many as possible. For the people in here in person, raise your hand and I'll see you. So I'm going to pause for a second. I see Ann typing. So